Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'll be refuting the blind faith of atheists regarding the burden of proof. Now, this is an extremely important topic, and I've been thinking about this topic for a long time, and I was wanting to do a video on this because I think there is an atheist dilemma that these clowns just ignore, and they need to answer this because it causes massive problems for them. Let's get started. So, firstly, I'll just address the general atheist claim regarding the existence of God. The atheists will claim that they are not making a claim regarding existence of God. They just don't believe in the existence of God. Therefore, they don't have any burden of proof. But this claim is nonsense, and I'll give a very simple reason why. God does not exist is a claim. God exists is a claim. Both are claims. Believing a claim without any proof is blind faith. And just to address the atheist nonsense, if you don't believe that God exists, this necessarily means you believe that God does not exist. It necessarily follows from that. If atheists do not claim this, they say that we are not claiming this, we just believe it, then that is blind faith. Believing a claim without any proof is blind faith. And by the way, I will get to the responses to this dilemma at the end. First, I'll bring up the dilemma and then I'll bring the responses to all of this. Here's the dilemma. These clowns need to decide, is there burden of proof for things we believe or just the things we claim? Remember, they said earlier we don't believe it, we don't claim it, we just believe it. These clowns need to decide, is there burden of proof for things we believe or just the things we claim? And why is this relevant? If the burden of proof is just for things we claim, then the atheist can avoid having the burden of proof if they say that we just believe it. But they cannot avoid blind faith because they are believing something without any proof. If the burden of proof also exists for things we believe, right? In that case, the atheist would have to prove things like God does not exist, miracles are impossible, something can come from nothing, there is no life after death. Why? Because these are things we believe, and these clowns are saying that burden of proof also exists for the things that a person believes. If the let's ignore that. If the burden of proof is for claims only, not beliefs, right? Then the theist, the believer in God, has absolutely no burden of proof whatsoever with regards to angels, jinns, life after death, problem of evil, and possibility of miracles. Why? Because these are things we believe, but we don't usually argue for that. I can't remember a last time I saw a theist arguing for existence of angels or jinn. And problem of evil is not an argument made by theists; it's an argument made by atheists. If you say that the burden of proof is for claims only, then the theist has no burden whatsoever in regards to these things. If the burden of proof is for claims as well, right, or beliefs as well, then the atheist can ask the theist to prove these things as well, while having to prove those theist beliefs to be false as well. If the burden of proof is for beliefs as well, the atheist believes all of these things are false, that the problem of evil is basically an argument, right? If burden of proof is for beliefs, they believe these things are false, they would have to have burden of proof for showing these things are false. There is simply no way around this. Now, basically there are possible counters to this dilemma, and I'll address each of them. There are basically four. Negative claims cannot be proven. Naturalism is the default position. Supernatural claims are by default extraordinary, hence require burden of proof. Appeal to intuitions. Firstly, negative claims cannot be proven, and this is something that's basically whined about by atheists for a long, long time. There is no such thing as a squared circle. That's a logical contradiction. Hilbert's hotel cannot exist. That's a metaphysical impossibility. My hand does not have 6 fingers. Negative claim proven. So this contention can be flushed. If the atheist cannot prove their claim, how is it the problem of the theist? If an atheist cannot prove their claim, why do they believe it? Seriously, if the other side cannot prove their claim, how is that our problem? If the atheists cannot prove their claim, why do they believe it? They are just going on faith, blind faith. Let's go to the next contention that can be made to this dilemma. Naturalism is default. Basically, they'll try to assume that naturalism is the default position. Firstly, first thing we can ask them, what is the criteria for default position and why do we even need to have one? They need to justify this claim and they cannot possibly justify it. Moreover, the only way naturalism can be default is if we take one definition of simplicity, meaning basically the lesser number of entities there are, the more simpler something is. I'll just explain why this is relevant. In what the atheists will usually claim, naturalism explains data, certain data, theism explains certain data. But theism has one more entity, God, therefore naturalism is simple. So they will basically appeal to simplicity. This does not work. Why? Because simplicity, if this is an appeal to Occam's razor, firstly one thing needs to be shown. Occam's razor applies when all else is equal. All else is not equal. The atheist position is garbage, and to be honest, it's very easy to see why it's garbage. So Occam's razor does not apply because Occam's razor only applies after you demonstrate both things are equal. It's in the definition of it. Firstly. Secondly, there are other definitions of simplicity. For instance, I'll just give one example and why this is a problem for atheists, right? Let's suppose we look at life. It appears to be designed, right? There's an intuition, there's a belief, and the appearance of life, of animals, of living things is that they are designed. Even atheists accept that they appear to be designed, life appears to be designed. The simpler explanation would be that it is actually designed. The more complicated explanation would be Darwinian evolution, a conspiracy theory basically. So even if we are taking simplicity, firstly there is no reason to take simplicity as the default position until it has been demonstrated that all else is equal. Secondly, why should we take their definition of simplicity? Moreover, there is an even bigger problem. Atheists themselves flush simplicity down the toilet when they feel like it. Multiverse, an infinite number of universes instead of one intelligent creator, is flushing simplicity down the toilet. There is no way around this. It by definition flushes simplicity down the toilet, as does Darwinian evolution. By the way, here is something atheists can claim here. Atheists can try to claim that if you involve design, there is one more entity, God, right? So Darwinian evolution necessarily is simple. This is not true. Why? Because technically you can have life being designed without there being an external designer. In fact, the version of the design argument that Stoics used to use, they agreed that the things were designed, but they were designed by themselves. So you can have design being there without invoking basically God. You can have the living things being designing themselves. Now we don't accept this, but it's possible, and it would be simpler than Darwinian evolution. There is simply no way around this. Moreover, if we are choosing a default position, why should we not use our natural beliefs slash intuitions as the default position? I mean, this is subjective all the way through, and if we use our natural beliefs as the default position, then believing in God is the default position. There are numerous psychological studies prove this, that we naturally believe God exists. There are studies that also show that life after death, basically we have a natural belief in life after death. Biological life is designed, everyone agrees that this is intuitive. If we are going by natural belief/intuition as a default position, atheism is dead. If we have to choose a default position, why can't we choose this one? The atheists need to argue for these things, and their contention that naturalism is simply default does not work on because of numerous reasons. Third atheist claim: supernatural claims are extraordinary, therefore they don't have burden of proof, and theist has burden of proof because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Firstly, I'll ask a simple question: what is the criteria for extraordinary? Actual infinity is extraordinary by any metric of it. By any criteria for extraordinary we use, actual infinity is extraordinary. It's not in any of our experience. So are atheists going to take the burden of proof for that? Something coming from nothing is beyond extraordinary. Are atheists going to take burden of proof for that? This contention does not work against the dilemma. Here's the thing: the atheists will try, sometimes they will try to appeal to intuition, certain intuitions, basically in arguments such as problem of evil. They will try to appeal to the intuition that suffering is evil and that there is basically, I don't think this is even an intuition, it's more like an indoctrination, but this is what they will appeal to. They will appeal to in most of their arguments, in bad design arguments, in problem of evil and similar arguments. In fact, in every single atheist argument they will appeal to intuitions. This is true. For instance, just to give one example, they will make that argument that many religions disprove God, right? Their intuition here is that God should have or would have just put everyone on the same religion. But this is an intuition. Why should we take their intuition seriously? Moreover, if you are appealing to intuitions, belief in God, life after death, and life being designed are all intuitive. So, what are you going to accept those things now? This doesn't work for atheists either. Now, I think I've clearly shown that the atheist dilemma, the problem, like this is not, they are not escaping this. There is simply no way around this. Now, I want to address the question of burden of proof with regards to possibility, right? Because the atheists really, they just switch their positions on this again and again. What is the atheist criteria regarding possibility? They need to answer this question. Is the burden of proof the person who is claiming something is possible, something is impossible, or both? If the burden of proof is regards to possibility, right, then the atheists need to prove that something coming from nothing is possible. Infinite regresses are possible. Life emerging due to blind random processes is possible. They need to prove this if the burden of proof is regarding possibility. If the burden of proof is regards to impossibility, right, that someone needs to prove something is impossible, then the atheist will have to prove, then the atheist won't have burden of proof for the things mentioned above. The atheist will have burden of proof for showing that the existence of God is impossible. Why? Because of the S5 axiom. Basically, because this is a axiom in modern logic, and because of this, philosophers, whether they are atheists or theists, they agree on a very simple point. If it is possible that God exists, then God necessarily exists. Watch my video on model ontological argument if you want to know the reason why or more go further into this. But this is something the theist and the atheist philosophers agree on. If it is possible that God exists, then God does exist. This is something they agree on. For this reason, atheists would have to hold the belief that existence of God is impossible. Now, if the burden of proof is with regards to possibility, the atheist would have to show something coming from nothing, infinite regresses, life emerging due to blind random processes are possible. These things are possible. If the burden of proof is with regards to impossibility, the atheist won't have to prove these things, but the atheist will have to show existence of God is impossible. there is no way around this dilemma. They cannot escape this problem for them. Either way, they run into massive problems. They cannot prove the things in the, like something coming from nothing, and they cannot show existence of God is impossible. The problem for them is simply not going away. Also, if they are saying that burden of proof is with regards to impossibility, then the atheists would have to prove miracles are impossible, and they cannot do that. In conclusion, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Again, think about the points I'm making. The atheists will basically play hot potato with burden of proof and with regards to their own epistemology, right? But just there is no escaping this dilemma. The problems for them are not going away. In any position they take, right? Either they will have an absolutely massive amount of blind faith or they will have to prove something. The problem for them is they cannot prove any of their claims. So this problem is not going to magically disappear. Inshallah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Again, this is a really important topic for me, and I've been thinking about